Welcome back to the Mothering with Jesus podcast, where we are real and raw about the ups and downs of motherhood and where we rally together to become the mothers that God intended us to be. I'm your host, Layna Massey, and today is actually a solo cast. It's just me. I am going to be sharing with you guys a really personal story that I have just felt the tuggings to share for a while now, and vulnerable and real, but I am sharing with you some of my fears and relying on my Savior. So I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that it can be meaningful for you. This podcast is brought to you by Oliveda. Did you know that 75% of your skincare is probably filled with water? And when we add water to a product, we also have to add preservatives. And these preservatives can be irritating and damaging to our skin. Oliveda is a clean, waterless beauty skincare company. And they also are coming out with makeup this fall, which I'm super excited about. I've been using Oliveda products since October of 2023, and I have noticed a huge difference in my skin. It has helped so much with my hydration, my skin tone, and hyperpigmentation problems. And I know it will help you too. You can look in the show notes to purchase, and you can always direct message me on Instagram at Mothering with Jesus podcast, and we can set up a skincare regimen for your specific skincare concerns. I can't wait to see you glow. Okay, ladies, here we go. So this week is something that I have been wanting to share for a few months now, and I just really hope that it can be meaningful for some of you. Okay, so this has to do with my health, my emotional health, and my physical health. So I have just been on this journey of healing for a while now. I knew that I was experiencing some things that weren't normal, just like really itchy skin and really tired and like hormones off, anger issues. Okay. So I've been dealing with these things for like a couple of years now. And all paths kind of always lead me back to parasites. Okay. If you are not in the like holistic world at all, we actually all come into parasites all the time. I did serve a foreign mission, but anybody can have parasites. We come in contact with them all the time in our foods and environment. It's not actually a third world thing. We have them here in the US as well. And a lot of people probably are dealing with them and just don't know it. And also, I personally believe that there's a huge emotional side to parasites. At least for me, there 100% was. Anyway, so I know that I have been dealing with them. I've done different cleanses at times, but I'm always pregnant or nursing. And so you have to be a little bit cautious about what you're doing. You can't do anything super intense because it could affect your little one as well, especially while you're pregnant. You wouldn't want to disturb too many things inside of you, right? You don't want to do any major detoxes. Anyway, so in my studies, in like people that I'm following and research that I'm doing, like I said, every time I think about my symptoms, I am kind of led back to parasites and keep thinking like it's parasites. And I keep doing things to get rid of parasites, taking different herbs, and doing things. And was noticing some differences, but nothing substantial. Still felt like I had my symptoms. And then God is just so interesting, the way that he lines up people in our lives and has things work out in specific ways. So time frame wise, this is all over like a span of probably 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Okay. And I also know that I've been dealing with parasites for a long time. Like, okay, so this is probably TMI, but when I was like 14, I was still getting pinworms, which is totally not normal. Usually you find pinworms in like very small children, and it's because they're like eating dirt, right? So, I knew that like I felt like I was just really susceptible to them for some reason. Like maybe the acidity in my stomach was just so, and I wasn't like, my body just wasn't seeing them as threats and taking care of it. I don't know. Okay. So I'm doing all of this like work to try to better my gut and strengthen my microbiome and do different things, thinking that I can help with these parasites. And then it was so interesting. So then probably 4 months ago or so, I don't know time frame wise, but several months back, I started realizing that okay, then adjacent to this issue, I also recognize that I have a major fear of my children getting kidnapped. And I've known this for years. And it just totally scared me. And just one of those fears that like logically I couldn't talk myself out of. And like it was getting really bad. Like I every morning would wake up and think like, oh, phew, we're all still here. And, anytime we went out and about, if I lost sight of one of my girls for a time, then I would just automatically go to like full panic mode, worst case scenario, and just totally freak out. And I've never even lost any of my children for longer than like maybe 3 minutes. Thank heavens. That literally has been a tender mercy from God, because if it had gone any longer, I think I would have been dead. But anyway, so I just have this fear, and I'm starting to recognize that like it's unhealthy. That I think all of us think about our children getting kidnapped, and that like obviously that would be terrible. But I was realizing that it was consuming me, and that I was just living completely petrified. And it I was just so full of fear. And it was so fascinating how it all worked out. So I have my amazing sisters, and I talked to one of them about it several times, and I just came to the realization that like I wasn't allowing Christ to be my savior. Like I was living in so much fear that I was saying that if anything happened, like if my husband died, or if I died, or even one of my children died, like Christ could cover me in that. He could help me through that. But if one of my children got kidnapped, and the unknowing of where they were and how they were, he couldn't help me in that. He could not give me peace. He could not give me comfort. Like that was the ultimate impossible for him to help me in any way. I was just living out of so much fear that like I wasn't allowing him to be him, right? To be the savior that he is. So I'm just slowly over several months having just all these little experiences and these chats with different people. So like I said, I talked to my sisters at different times, and then and I always knew that this fear derived from the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. I grew up in Provo, and she was kidnapped in Salt Lake City, so close to home. And it was one of the scenarios where she was just, she was 14, I was 10, so it all just felt really similar and really real. There were billboards everywhere, her family trying to find her, and it was just like a big thing that was right in everybody's faces, right? And I was very aware of it at the time, and looking back, I realized that like all of this fear was stemming from this situation. So then one day I was at a park with one of my new friends. Shout out Lydia. She is amazing, and she just moved to St. George, and we randomly met at a park, and her and I were talking one day, and I have no idea even how it came up, but we started talking about Elizabeth Smart, and she shared that she has a sister, and I can't remember the details if her sister is just a couple years older than me, I think. Anyway, this sister also carried around a lot of trauma from the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. And her sister had gone to a therapist, and the therapist said, oh, there are a lot of women who are around 30 years old who were really traumatized by this, and it has been hard for them, and it's been hard for them as moms to not have this fear of their children getting taken away. And so when she told me this, it felt so validating, and I just recognized that, like, wait, this is actually a real problem. This isn't something that I'm making up in my head, and it's a real problem, and maybe I don't have to live this way. So I keep just kind of mulling over all this information, right? I keep repeating to myself, like, that, like, recognizing that I'm not allowing Christ to be my savior when I am carrying around this much fear. And also just recognizing that this was a real thing, this was a real fear, and that I'm not crazy, that there were other people who also were feeling this fear from the same event. And then I talked to my mom about it, and obviously I had talked to my husband about it at different times and shared all the wise things that people were sharing with me. I was trying to be cautious. I think if you share too much, like if you're talking about a scenario with someone and you keep sharing it with a lot of people, it can turn into something bigger than it is. So I was also being cautious not to just share it with everybody and make it like bigger. I didn't want it to be bigger, but I do know that when we are vulnerable and we share things with people, like the right people, that the Lord really can speak to us through them, and they can give us wise words of wisdom and help. And and especially with mental health issues, where you're experiencing depression, anxiety, anger, that we really do need each other. And it's so important to have community and have people that you can trust. So I just slowly shared things, and this was over several months. And then I just kept feeling God working on me and kept feeling led to different things. I also recognized that the parasites I was experiencing were deriving from this fear that I was literally allowing something that was harming my body into my body because I was full of so much fear. And it just is fascinating, the relation between emotions and health and how things really are so intertwined. And I don't know, maybe some people think that's kooky, but I have definitely experienced the like emotional and health connection multiple times. And so I believe in it. So here I am. I kind of feel like I have all of these pieces and a higher viewpoint around what I'm experiencing. I am understanding where my physical symptoms are coming from, and I'm understanding where my fears are coming from, and I'm feeling validated in all the things, but I'm still carrying this fear. Nothing had really changed yet. I'm just kind of holding onto all of these pieces for several months and mulling them over and just waiting to know what my next step should be and what I should do. There was one day that I was praying and I was just like, God, I need to know what to do for my parasites. Like, what would you have me do? And I sat down with my phone and with my little notepad, and I was looking up different things that were popping into my mind, different people that I had heard talking about certain supplements. And I just made this whole plan with God. Like I just knew that he was saying, Kate, take this. And I wrote down, my whole little plan with him and felt like he was directing me. And I started taking all these different supplements and kept up with them. Noticed maybe a little bit of difference as far as like my fatigue went, but still I wasn't like seeing parasites pass or anything. And again, TMI. But if you have like heard anybody talk about parasites, like when they do a cleanse, often they'll see a bunch of parasites and know that they're passing them. And some can be microscopic and they can be in your liver flukes, or they can be big ones up to like, a foot long hanging out in your intestines, right? So I'm not seeing any parasites leave my body, but I just am holding on. I'm just like, okay, like just carry on, right? So much of life and health is just like keep moving forward, keep doing the best thing that you can be doing right now, and God will give you more, or something will change. So then fast forward maybe a month later, and I am going to church Sunday. And this particular Sunday, I go to Relief Society and I took my little 14-month-old with me. And she played perfectly on my lap, and then she fell asleep. So I'm just sitting in Relief Society, and I was able to listen to the entire lesson, and we didn't have to get up and leave, which if you are a mother to a small baby, you know that this is miraculous and that this literally was the hand of God just blessing this sweet little baby to go to sleep. So she's asleep in my arms, and the whole lesson was really good. It was really powerful. We started out with the bishopric coming in and changing our Relief Society presidency. And so they set the new presidency apart right there. So the lesson starts out with these beautiful priesthood blessings, and the spirit was just so strong. And then the teacher was so prepared. She did such a great job. And she just shared a lot of neat experiences, and everybody in the room was sharing good things. And honestly, I don't even know what the whole lesson was on, or even why this story came up in the end. Looking back, like even that day, I couldn't even remember how it led to this story. But I know that she shared this story for me. Like it was just for me. It was the most beautiful thing. So I'm gonna leave this very vague because it's not my story to tell. But she just shares this story about this young couple, and husband ends up passing away while they are on this camping trip. And the wife is left to go and find, and as she's heading to the place where she thinks her husband might be, it is early morning, and she just remembers everything so vividly. It was absolutely beautiful out. It was around a lake, and it had rained the night before, and the sun was shining through the droplets of water on the leaves, and it was so peaceful. Part of her wanted to call out for her husband because she was, of course, feeling kind of frantic to find him. But the other part of her did not want to break this silence, and she could feel how peaceful and how beautiful this moment was. So she is looking around the lake to find him, and eventually she does. He has passed away, and she sits next to him and holds his hand and feels so much peace in that moment. And she said later that she knew the Savior was there, that he was at that lake with her in that moment of complete despair. And as I'm sitting in this Relief Society lesson, I am just weeping and I am just there with her. Like I could see, and then I go. And if your Sunday afternoons are anything like mine, we get home and my girls usually are having kind of a rough go. There's usually several fights, several meltdowns, and they're all just tired and hungry. And so we try to just get through, like, it's probably the roughest time of the week. And this Sunday, again, God was just creating this space, and he does this all the time for us as mothers because our lives are so busy, but he will create spaces where he can speak to us if we are willing. And so my children happen to be fine. We get home this Sunday and they are just fine. My older girls just like went off to play, and my little baby went to sleep, and everybody was just having a grand old time together and they weren't fighting. And it was literally a miracle. So here I am. I was pottering about my house. I was vacuuming my family room, and we had turned on Lauren Daigle. If you don't know Lauren Daigle, she is a gospel singer, and she is incredible. She has beautiful music. I'm sure you have heard some of her songs like You Say or Rescue. You can look those up. But I happen to be listening to Peace Be Still by her. So this is so cool. So this song happens to come on. I know a lot of Lauren Daigle songs. I've been to her concert. It is incredible. And we listen to her all the time. But I don't think I had ever heard this song or paid attention to it if I had heard it. But here I am vacuuming, and I keep thinking about this story that the Relief Society teacher told, and just feeling really grateful that I knew that story was for me, because I was realizing that in this moment of complete despair for this woman, Christ was there, and Christ held her safely in this little bubble for a time and let her feel his peace. And I just knew that he could do that for me. Even if one of my children gets kidnapped, that he is going to be there. And I could believe that in every other scenario, but for some reason I couldn't believe it in this scenario until I had these experiences this Sunday. So let me read you the words to this song. I don't want to be afraid every time I face the waves. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to fear the storm. Just because I hear it roar. Just because I hear it roar. I don't want to fear the storm. Peace be still. Say the word and I will. Set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still. You are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. I'm not going to be afraid. Because these waves are only waves. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to fear the storm. You are greater than its roar. I'm not going to fear the storm. I'm not going to fear at all. Peace be still. Say the word and I will. Set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still. You are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace, peace over me. Let faith rise up, O heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Peace be still. You are here, so all is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace, peace over me. It's the most beautiful song. You have to go listen to it. But I just had these sacred moments while I was vacuuming my family room and mulling over this beautiful story I had heard, and then listening to these words. I don't want to fear. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to fear the storm. And I knew that God was giving me those words, that like I could continue to say those words to myself, and I could let my faith in him be greater than my fears, and I could cast my fears upon the Savior. He is greater than the storm. Whatever storm we are going through, even if it's literally our worst nightmare, the one thing that we fear more than anything else in the whole world, He is greater than our fear. So I'm having this moment, and then the girls are still hanging out, and my husband was in the kitchen. I'm sure he was cleaning it because he's amazing. Shout out Russell. And I came over to him and I was like, I have to tell you the coolest story that's happened today. So I tell him all about the Relief Society lesson, and I tell him all about the song. And I said to him, my parasites can leave now. They can leave my body. And then, again, TMI, but literally 10 minutes later, I go to the bathroom, and for the first time in months of doing parasite cleansing, I see a parasite. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was all real. Like, it was real. I really did have parasites. And they really were affecting me. And it really was my fear that was allowing them to be in my body. God is so good. And then fast forward the last few months, it has been amazing. When we go to the park or when we're out and about, if I don't see my children for a few minutes, I'm actually okay. It's unbelievable. The Savior literally took away that fear. He showed me that He is greater than the storm. And I just really think it's incredible how the Lord lines everything up so beautifully, and how I got to hear that story. It was a story that happened so many years ago, and the teacher happened to be inspired to share it, and I happened to be there that day, and it happened to touch me in a way that was so meaningful and so impactful for me, and was just the last piece of this puzzle that I had been carrying around. And when we talk about God being in the details, He is in the details. He is lining us up with all the things that we need. Even as I say this, I just am recognizing that I'd been carrying this trauma with me for so many years, and just everything that lined up, that I ended up moving to St. George and meeting these people. Like, what if this was the whole reason that I even moved to St. George? I grew up in Provo, and we felt very strongly that we needed to move to St. George. And honestly, there hasn't been any blatant reason. There hasn't been any obvious reason as to why we should be here. But what if this was it? What if this was one of the reasons so that I could be in St. George, Utah and hear that story? I don't know. I'm sure there's many reasons why we're supposed to be here, but God is a master at weaving our lives together and connecting us with the people that we need in order to heal our hearts, heal our souls, heal our health, carry our burdens for us. He is so good. Christ is mighty to save. He is bigger. Anything you are going through, anything you will go through. I really hope that this story can find the people who need it. So share it with people if you feel pulled to do so. And I hope you know how much God is cheering you on. He wants you to be happy and whole, and he wants you to be able to serve and love and feel fulfilled in everything that you do. And he's also right there to give you all the answers to help you become who you need to be. I am forever cheering you on. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.